So my name's Steve Manning. I'm with a company called Invasive Plant Control. Started this business about 15 years ago, and we travel around the world doing invasive plant management. You can see my email and my cell phone number there. If you have any questions after the presentation anytime in the future, feel free to give me a call on my cell phone or shoot me an email. I'll get back with you as soon as I can. So Invasive Plant Control was formed as a local company, and we've spread over the years, and it's always been focused on mobile strike teams. So we've always had a team of anywhere from 2 to 12 people, just depending on the size of the project, that go around from one site to another throughout the United States and control invasive species. Just to give you an example, and I'm going to use this example throughout the presentation, you can see the picture on the screen there. That's Paul Richmiller. He's the crew leader for one of our teams. He's down in Florida right now working on some projects, but he had a team that started out in the Adirondacks, and over the course of a 6-month period, you can kind of see the path that he took. So what you get with our strike teams is a lot of miles. These guys traveled, 2,970 miles in about 6 months on this particular path, give or take. And throughout those miles, there were a lot of things we learned along the way that we kind of wish could have been improved. So this was a few years ago. And we kind of had the dilemma of, I call it inadequate technology, and I think this was a big part of it. For 15 or more years now, we've been utilizing the technology that's there, and it really hasn't been good enough to stop doing what we were doing, which might have just been, paperwork or hard copies, sending things back and forth. We worked with Access databases, we worked with a lot of different tools, but really the dilemma was that the technology itself, the cell phones, the tablets, those things weren't there. The laptops didn't really suffice while you were out in the field. So really the dilemma has been inadequate technology. So when someone like Paul takes his team from the Adirondacks over to the hill, down to Tennessee, down to Arnold Air Force Base, over to Lookout Mountain Land Trust, and you're dealing with things like logistics in the Adirondacks, and the licensing is different when they move from one state to another, and they have to track these things, and they have to have this information on site, in hand, easy to access, easy to send out to our clients. From there, site sheets in every site are different. So at Arnold Air Force Base, it'll be one set of information, and another site it'll be different. For a land trust, you have all these partnering organizations that you have to work with, and you have to have educational and workshops and different types of things that are just different than other places. So really communication was the issue there. So Paul has to manage all this stuff. In the same path he took, he would go to the Smoky Mountains, and the seasons would change, and instead of using the methods he was using in the summer in the Adirondacks on honeysuckle, he'd have to use something completely different in the Smoky Mountains in North Carolina in the fall or the winter. So he has to have a good way of tracking those things, a good way of understanding the methods and changing as needed. Moving over to South Carolina in the winter, in our case, he might be doing mapping. I think he mapped 13,000 acres on this project. So when he's doing this type of a mapping project, how's he going to follow that? How's he going to track it? How's he going to keep the information up to date? Move down to South Florida, plants all change. No, nothing's, very, very few plants there that are the same as what he's treated for the rest of the year. So he has to understand the plants that are there and how to treat them and how they're different from other species. And of course, he ended his path in the Virgin Islands on that little trek, and you have all those issues I just mentioned in the same place right there. So those are the kind of things that we as a company decided we had to fix. We were trying to find improvements to those things throughout the course of time, and really until technology changed, we weren't able to do that. So now that the phones and the tablets are up to date and you can actually utilize them with fewer errors, I'll give this presentation and the server might go down. And I can't help that from happening, but certainly it doesn't happen as often as it did 10 years ago or 2 years ago for that matter. So now we can actually work in the cloud, and we can save things in different places. And if I want to utilize my iPhone in the field, I can. So part of the solution for Paul's and all our crew's issues was to improve these pieces of technology, build tools that will work with the tools that actually work now. And when we did that, we realized this wasn't something that we just needed to be doing, but other people could utilize these tools as well. So we kind of formed a package of tools that could be utilized, and it was called IPC Web Solutions. Now, IPC Web Solutions is a partnership between the University of Georgia and Invasive Plant Control. So we utilize the EdMaps group with Chuck Barger on, and he helps us build a lot of these tools, and his staff, and they do a wonderful job with that. And we're able to take the tools and improve on them, and our crew comes up with a lot of new ideas on how to improve them. So over the course of time, these tools are just getting better and better. And I want to stress that while these tools are invasive species based, that's what they were built off of, that they have a lot of other uses. You know, most of the tools I show you can be used for any type of resource management, whether it's managing a native plant nursery or managing your deer population in a park. There's all types of other purposes for these tools, and I think what's happening is a lot of people are realizing that, and they might have been introduced to the tools for invasive species, and now they're adapting them for whatever other resource management needs they have. So we develop apps. That's one of the things we do. I'm not going to get into it a lot today, but I'll show you a little bit in a minute. And I'll mention, be going back and forth from PowerPoints to the online tools and actually showing you the demonstrations. So you have to bear with me as I go back and forth. But we do build apps, and that helps us interact with a lot of our online programs. So if we have a project for the Greenwich Land Trust, who I'll use an example of throughout this presentation, we'll build an app for that particular group to work with their tools. And in our case, we have IPC Connect for a lot of our crews that are out in the field. So IPC Connect is one of our primary tools that we use. And I guess a good comparison is Microsoft Office in terms of just the layout. IPC Connect online tools would be like Microsoft Office, kind of our main product that we use, our crews use in the field, and that other people are using now. Microsoft Office has Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc. IPC Connect has inventory, projects, prevent, plans, and logic. So we have different tools within this Office suite, basically. And those are the ones that we've kind of built over time, and we're continuing to tweak. And as different people use them and different agencies use them, we realize there's different things we can do with the different pieces of it and the different components. And we're able to improve upon it as we go. So these are the kind of the 5 tools that I'm going to talk a little bit about today. The IPC Connect Prevent, I'm not going to get into a lot of detail on that, but just to give you the background, we're building that into a smart tool for prevention. So as you work on your prevention projects, it gives a 7-step process to build up EDRR capacity on your properties or your agency or whatever group you're managing. And it's a smart tool, it's a decision tool, so it kind of takes you through the process online. Now, with that said, let me actually end that show, and I'm just going to jump into, we're going to start with inventory. So let me go here to inventory and just kind of introduce that really quickly, and then I'm going to jump online and show it to you live on the internet. So IPC Connect Inventory. So take that team that I showed you, Paul's team, and just imagine now the projects they have to work on. Well, the first thing they have to do is get an inventory of the area. They have to understand what's there. In many cases, take that information, build it into a management plan, which we'll talk about later. But throughout the course of the inventory, they need to identify the species. They need to know how to treat the species and put that into the management plan. And they also need to know density levels, anything they can about these species. So we built our tools to make it much easier for them to use them in the field. And I'll mention really quickly that the management guide for invasive plants in southern forests is a really good tool to use. I'll show you this in a minute online. You can actually get this on your phone. We have it on an app for that now, so you can grab that, and it's also got the invasive plants in southern forests as well. And I want to stress that although it says southern forests, especially on the East Coast, many of these plants move up to the East Coast, and you've got them all the way to Maine. So it's a really good book for anybody. And the previous one, which was the management guide, it's all about management, not necessarily the plants. So this is a good book for anywhere in the United States. So what I would suggest is it's a free publication. I'll show you how to get it in a minute. It's a good one to have in terms of the identification when you're doing inventories, and a nice quick access guide while you're in the field. Now, IPC Inventory has been built and it's customized, I guess, to suit anyone we're working with, but it has the capability of really doing whatever you want. You can build species lists, timestamps, photos, species points, polygons, densities of the invasive species. It's really important to understand the density when you're putting together a management plan, because when you're doing things like putting projects out for bid or doing them in-house, it really helps you build timelines and understand the best methods for doing the type of work you're talking about. I will also say that our inventory process is set up by the standards of the North American Invasive Plant Mapping Standards, which was set up by NAMA in May of 2002. And you can see all the different endorsements these standards have by FICMANU, Fish and Wildlife Service, Bureau of Land Management. And EDMAPS and IPC Connect are fully compatible with these standards. Oftentimes in the field we're in, you're working in areas where there is no connectivity. So we've kind of addressed that as well. And the apps do work in the field. So if there's no connectivity, if you're at Goblin Valley here and you're looking for something and you're doing an inventory, and you can see there is green there, maybe you're back along the bluffs here, and you find some tamarisk or something of that nature, you're able to actually open up your app, utilize it on your iPhone or your Android, whatever it is, and put the information in that you need to put in there, and then when you get back to your office, you can actually download that. Or when you get back to where there's connectivity, it'll automatically download. So, Paul took his team now, and he's in the Adirondacks, and it's time for them to start inventorying. So they're able to actually now have, whether they're using the GPS like the Trimble or they're using their iPhones or their Androids for the GPS surveys, they're able to actually do it from the field and actually have a good way of getting all that information in now and utilize it later in your management plan. And I'll show you in a second how to do that. But I will mention EDMAPS really quickly. Most of you are probably familiar with it, but what it says there is true. It is the common operating platform for invasive species distribution. So go to EDMAPS if you haven't. Start using it. Start showing where the plants are. Let's see that distribution data improve from year to year. And what we've been able to do with Chuck is take this another step with some of these tools that we have here. So let's go really quickly to IPC Connect, which is kind of our hub here for a lot of these different tools. They're not all here, but these are a large portion of them. So as far as inventorying is concerned, when our guys are out in the field and Paul's out there in the Adirondacks and he needs to, mark some spots and mark different species and what to do about them, he can use several different tools in here. The first I'm going to show you is just the KMLs. If we click on that, and let's just pick a site and a date range. Let's see where he's been inventorying from January this year up until the 18th of this year. And let's pick a site. I'm going to say, if we go down to Glen Carlin, which is an Arlington County park up in the DC area. And we do a lot of work for Arlington County, Fairfax County. Let's take a look at some of the reports that you can bring up with your KML. So while he's been out in the field and he's worked on these sites, they're always marking them. They're always tracking what they've done and what's there. So by just picking that particular site, and you can have all the sites you've ever worked on in the hub there, and then you can generate reports, drop-down menus, whatever you want for any of these sites for the inventories. You can now see it pulled up Glen Carlin Park. You can see all the different shape files that are in here of the areas that they've worked. Let's just pick one. Let's say Polygon 1605. So let's click on that. We click on it. We just log in here really quickly. If everything's working, what it'll do is bring up a little closer shot of that particular area. Yeah, there you go. And we can zoom in just a little bit just to kind of get a better shot at it. And now you can see the area that we just clicked on, all the treatments that have been done there over the course of time. You can click on any of these to see the plant that we're talking about. You can see the density as he's recorded it. You can add any comments you want to depending on what you're trying to do on the site. Here's a picture from the site. You can see the wisteria vines quite big. But that's on the site, so you get the overhead with the Google Earth, and then you get the close-up with the shots like that. You can see winged burning bushes there, golden bamboo on that site. Just pull up the picture to take a look at it. You can see where they've actually treated some of the golden bamboo there. And then you can go down here and see the different mappings, and the pictures are right next to the species, and then where it's located. You can see the density. You can put notes in there. You can have whatever information you want, but this allows them to inventory the site very well. And then when it's time to do the treatments, they have all the information that they need on that particular site. So let me back out of this really quickly. Discard that. We'll go back into the IPC Connect Hub. And from the admin page, there's another kind of mapping section here is the polygons, obviously. So with the polygons, every time they do work out here and they're doing this inventory, they're able to actually record it, all the sites they've ever done. You can see it's by the observation date, or you can go by, however you want to on this. But let's just click let's click on a site that Martin was working on. It looks like Okefenokee Swamp. So Martin was doing a inventory of the boundaries of this park, post-fire inventory, to see what invasives were out there. And you can see the different boundary points. You can see where he found Japanese honeysuckle. You can, like I said, take the picture of it. It's really important to make sure these guys are taking pictures while they're out there, so you can get a good close-up view while you're doing your management planning after the inventory. But you can see the time it was taken, the density of the species in that area. Then, of course, you can move down and see all the different points on the bottom here. You see Rattlebox there, probably right here, some of that. If you're not familiar with Rattlebox, you can zoom in on the picture and see what that plant looks like when it gets taller. Maybe a different view of it on the ground. So it's a really nice inventory tool. It really allows you to get the information in there. And I think what you'll see as we move along here is it allows you to take all this information, and now with the other tools that I'm going to show you, really utilize it without ever having to let go of that handheld or that tablet. It's all right there accessible while you're standing in the field. So I'm going to go back to the administration page. I'm going to leave the inventory stuff for now, and let me jump into, well, actually there's one more thing I wanted to show you really quickly about that. Let me get on to invasive plant control. Just so you'll know, if you go to our homepage, invasiveplantcontrol.com, we're always trying to put new and information on this particular part of the page. So you can go to an old conference like the Pacific Northwest Invasive Plant Council workshop. You can pull up the agenda from the conference we helped host out there. Click on any of the presentations and it'll pull up the presentation for you. So you can actually see any of these presentations whenever you want to take a look at them. A lot of good workshops, a lot of good trainings that are right here for you to see. The management guide I was discussing is here too. So if you just click on that, you can have the online version. It is a free guide, so if you go to the Forest Service website, you can actually order this and they'll send you the guides for free. You can see the chapters here. It's a really good book in terms of just getting details about different control methods. This is the manual, and you can see you have hand pulling, hand clippers, loppers, shrub wrenches. And we tested all these different tools in the field, the different loppers, the different weed wrench devices, and figured out which ones were best, which ones we wouldn't buy, and we just put it out there. We're very blunt in our information and trying to share with people, so if they're going to go out and get this stuff, they're going to get the right kind. That's all right there on the website, and obviously these types of resources help you while you're doing your inventory as well. So again, let's go back now to the next step. So now Paul's been out there and he's done the work on the site in terms of inventorying. And now he needs to kind of put it into a format to try to understand how do you do the control on these species. So one tool that we've been working hard on is called IPC Logic. Now IPC Logic is our smart tool. It's our decision tool for control methods. And we build this very customized. You log in, any of these tools I'm showing you, you can use on Androids, you can use on iPhones, you can use on tablets, you can use on your laptop, wherever you want to use them, they're accessible. But IPC Logic, you log in while you're in the field, you put the species, the size of the infestation, whatever inputs you decide are important you can put in there. We kind of customize it to each area, and every place, including, like, I'm going to show you an example of the military installations, IPC Logic in a second. All the variables that are there are customized to that installation. So whatever needs they had resource management-wise, that's how they pick their inputs. And then the outputs are going to give you methods, chemicals, tools and equipment recommended, restoration recommendations, whatever you want, you can add in there. So that while Paul's out there doing the inventory, he can actually look up the plant management part of this and understand how to deal with it. So when he's down in Florida, another example, when he's in Florida, this is a great tool to have because he just moved from the Adirondacks down to a whole new set of plant species. So if he's not familiar anymore, if he can't remember very well how to deal with Brazilian pepper, he can just pull up IPC Logic on his phone, put the variables in there, and get the best treatment recommendations right in his hand, right at his fingertips. And I'm going to jump, like I said, I'm going to be going back and forth a lot, so please bear with me. But hopefully I have everything set up in time. This is the kind of the clean interface for IPC Logic. And let me say, I think this is a great tool for a lot of different groups, a lot of different users. One example I think is good to use is county extension agents. Lots of times when I've called county extension agents and I've asked them a question about a certain plant species and how to control it, they're not too sure of it, or if they are pretty sure about it, if there's 75 agents in one state, you're going to get about 75 different answers. Not necessarily all bad answers, but they're going to be very inconsistent. A tool like this would allow the agent to answer those questions going by these variables for that particular state and come up with a very consistent answer across the board, which I think is very important for when you're treating invasive species on natural areas. Just an example of where I think this would be a good spot. Now, just how do you use this? It's very simple. The meat of this, the guts of this are very intense. There's a lot of information in there. There's a lot of detail. But we tried to make the user interface very simple. So let's just say in this case we're going to treat, you can pick from any of the species on the list from your site. But let's say you want to treat Japanese honeysuckle. And you can put the acreage in there. We're going to say this is 2 acres. How dense is it? High, medium, low. In this case, we'll say high. What growth stage are you trying to control? We'll just say we want to control everything. Is it near water? We'll say no in this case. Do you want to treat it while dormant? Not important. Are there species in the area that you don't want to damage? We're going to say yes, we want to be selective. And let's go ahead and pick a season. Let's say we don't want to treat this, and part of our selectivity is we want to treat it in the winter so we can be more selective in our control of the Japanese honeysuckle. So once you have all your variables in there, we click Get My Control Options, and what you get is a color-coded response. So red indicates methods that if you search online on how to control Japanese honeysuckle, these are the answers you're going to get, whether it's online or through different books and material. But in our case, because we're very familiar with this site and we built the tool for it, we're able to say, although these are recommended, don't do them. And here's reasons why. Go over to the notes section and you'll see why you don't do the methods here in red that are recommended. Yellow is a recommendation that also might be on a different resource, but it might have some application. But keep it there. We'll think about it later, maybe in the later part of the management. And then green gives you plenty of options based on the variables you gave for controlling those species on that site. So in this case, Japanese honeysuckle, if you look down through here, probably want to do cutting and treating when you're doing the large stumps. So here's your rate, the man hours we anticipate if it's a 2-acre site, the herbicide we recommend and the reasons why for this particular site. You might want to do a foliar spray with a backpack sprayer. You'll use a lot less chemical that way. And here's some examples and notes on the herbicide. And you can go down the list and you can see the number of hours it might take to do that. You might see the different chemicals that are there. And as you do your projects from year to year, you're adding to these notes, you're adding and you're improving upon it. So this tool, again, just gets smarter and smarter. And of course, in year 2, when you come back to the same site and you put in your variables are going to be different. You won't have necessarily 2 acres infested at a high level anymore. It might be a low level. You might have a lot of different variables, so the control methods are going to come up differently. And over the course of time, your tool gets smarter and your projects get done effectively and consistently. So that's IPC Logic. Again, this is a simple interface with a lot of detail, and it's really a neat tool that you can build in, and you can pull it up on any of your mobile devices. So I'm going to go next to, let's go here and just do a quick introduction to the management plans. So Paul's now done the inventory. He's gone through there and he's picked up the best ways to do the control methods on the different species they identified during the inventory. Well, you certainly have enough information now to start your management plan. One of the things that I've really had a problem with over the years are just the 3-ring binder management plans that sit on the shelf. Sometimes they're used, sometimes they're not, but they're very difficult to update, very difficult to deal with. Well, we decided the best way to deal with that is to build an interface and an online tool called IPC Connect Plans. So we're taking this 3-ring binder now, we're digitizing all the management plans that you have, and then anything we add to that from that point forward is an online tool. You can still print documents, you can print reports, but you can also do a lot of other things now that you can't do when it's just sitting on the shelf. So they're web-based. You can use them for any type of plan, whether it's invasive species, safety plans, handbooks, volunteer organization, whatever it is you need to build these online plans for, you can. You can digitize them. It doesn't take that long to take what you already have and actually build it into an online plan. And of course, if you have a new one, then you're just building the tabs and you're building the different sections, and it just builds basically a piece of software that allows you to utilize that from that point forward. A good example of where the management plan like this is very handy would be like a land trust. So when Paul's team moves down here and he's meeting with all these landowners that are surrounding this national park property, that are surrounding the state land down here and the TVA off in the distance, this management plan can now be accessed. Different sections of the plan can be accessed by any of the stakeholder groups that you want to be accessible to. So they can understand where the Paulownia is and what's the management plan for the Paulownia. You know, what's the Japanese knotweed, the mimosa, how are we going to treat these different species? You know, this particular area is covered with English ivy, you know, and on top of the English ivy is kudzu, you know, and on top of that is privet in some cases, or you can see here ailanthus or tree of heaven or mimosa. There's just one layer after another. So having the online management plan allows a lot of access to certain components of the plan and then keeps your stakeholders a lot more informed. So let's go show that one really quickly. So again, we'll go back to the IPC Connect Hub here. And just to show you, you can click on User Management in the section we would be building. So whoever gets these tools gets their own little sections, their own little web interfaces and pages. And you can pick your user roles. So if you have a land trust and you want one editor, you go in here and you make, you know, Adam the editor. You can make up whatever categories you want here. If you want to have volunteer, an area where volunteers can go and work on the plan, you click in volunteer. If you want to have it to where they can just see the plan, you can do that. However you want to do it, you can assign your user roles. And then we've got 2 sections of management plans now. The newer one, I'll just click on it and show you the interface really quickly. If we just click on one of these properties. Again, I'm going to use the Greenwich Land Trust in Connecticut as an example of a lot of these plans because we actually put together 75 different management plans for invasives on all of their properties this last summer. So they're a land trust with a lot of different properties, and they're all separated because it's a land trust, and each site had its own management plan. And I'll show you the details of those plans, some of the details of those plans in a minute. But just to show you the interface for the editing part of it. So when you're in the field and you're working on this plan, we have this nice table of contents format. And you can pick your category. Let's just say let's go down to invasives, and we want to discuss the mechanical methods that are out there on this particular site. Well, we just click on that. We can enter in all the mechanical for grasses and forbs and shrubs, whatever we think on this particular site, which might be I didn't see the acreage on it, but maybe it's a 1-acre site. But it has all the details for all the recommendations for any type of species there. And it's all for this site. And you can get in here, you can do all your editing there. You just hit submit at the bottom. You can put it into a PDF format, a Word format. You can view it in a different format. And then you can go from one site to another and just do all these changes and these corrections. And this is all in the field. So instead of having the 3-ring binder on the shelf that never gets updated, you now have this tool that's in the field with you on your handheld device, on your tablet. You're able to update your management plan real time. You don't have to wait 3 years. You don't have to wait 5 years or even at the end of the year. You can do it every day. If your crew's out there on the site working, you can update the plan right there. As soon as they finish a project on this site, add in there the section that was worked on, the plants that were treated, and you can update it. You can take away that this site hadn't been treated yet. Let's go back to the administration page really quickly. And I'm just going to show you from this angle, the management plans. Let me find let's see. Let's do this in alphabetical order. Let's go to the Bressler property. So for the Greenwich Land Trust, this is one of the 75 properties they have. You can see the categories that they found important for their management planning. So we built all this online scheme for them, and you got the introduction. You can show the property description and size. So this is a 1.5 acre site. Again, all of this is accessible on anybody's handheld that has been designated a user. Ownership documents, you can put the history of the site down there. You can put description of past usage, whatever categories you want to include in there, you can. Go over to descriptions, you can have the geology described on the site. As much detail as you want to put in there, you can. Man-made structures, invasive exotic species infestations. Well, here's the detail on those. So after we did the inventory and we added this section, now while they're in the field, they can click on their species list. They can see the species on this 1.5 acre site. You can see the infestation level on this site is pretty low to medium, although it looks like garlic mustard's got a high rate of infestation there. You can look at the treatment strategies that had been advised for this particular site. So for the Japanese stiltgrass, here's the manual control methods. For the vines, Oriental bittersweet, clematis, mirror pepper vine, creeper, English ivy, here's all the treatment recommendations. Tree of heaven for the trees, grasses. It's all right there in front of you, and you can change that. You can do whatever you want to with it while you're working on that site. And then, of course, you can click on the map. This is your management plan now, and instead of just having a map on a piece of paper, here it is. You can update it. You can do whatever you want to on it. So let's just click on multiflora rows, and we see this particular site. You can see it's by a pond or a lake. Has a multiflora rows. We saw the species already. You click on the plant, the picture, and there's the plant on the ground, the picture of it. So it's a seedling, so it's going to be a little easier to treat in that spot. Multiflora rows there. What else do we have? Winged burning bush, garlic mustard. So here's a picture of garlic mustard on the site, and it's a really, really nice way to see a real interactive management plan. So you're not just looking at that document and thinking, well, we need to do something about this. You can take these, you can print reports, you can have your drop-down menus. You can utilize this tool when you're looking for grant funding, for any type of funding, and you can always keep it up to date. And I think that's just the best thing. If you want to update a section here, go to Management Goals and Strategies, update your long-term goals. Do what you have to do there. If you need to put more maps in here, try to really have a good idea of what it looks like in the winter versus the summer. Or in this case, you can see they have photographs of the summer, it looks like, maybe a little spring shot there. So you have your species list, all the plants that are on the site can be listed here. You can have property location maps, GIS maps, aerial maps, whatever you want to put in here, you have the opportunity to put it in there. And that's just what this particular group wanted to see in their management plans. So they're able to put it in there. It's a great tool. You can take the stuff we talked about under the inventory. You can take all this stuff under IPC logic, and it all ties in now. So all these tools are working together. You've been able to inventory. You figured out where the plants were, the densities, the problems that you're going to deal with. You've been able to go to logic and pull out all the treatment information at this point and understand the plants are treated this way on this particular 1.5 acre site. And then we're dealing with the management plan part of it. So we actually put it all in there, build the management plan. We have our reports. We have our documentation now. So now I guess the next step is to actually get in there and actually do the work on the site. So really quickly, I'll just introduce this one, which is the next piece of software, I guess, or online tool, if you want to call it that, which is called IPC projects. So like I was mentioning in the beginning, when we first started working on invasive species, over the course of time, we've been trying to build software and tools that would help us and our crews in the field manage what they're doing. So IPC projects kind of came from that, and all those other tools have been great to use, but this is the one that really was the reason we started all this 15 years ago. Because now this helps us track information. It helps the clients that we have track the information what we're doing on the site. It helps them, if they use this tool for their own crews, know where they've been working, what they're doing. They can do it all on their mobile devices, so everything's really accessible all the time. You can track projects, and it's really a good project management tool for resource management with a lot more detail than most of the tools you can get out there. You know, you can look up licenses, you can do a lot of different things while you're out there. So now Paul's in the Virgin Islands, and he really needs to manage this site well. He needs to understand the before and after. You know, he can start recording and throwing these before-after pictures into his tracking tools, and then he can utilize those in his management plan if he needs to. You know, you can talk about the methodologies. You can track the way that your applicators are applying the different chemicals. You can talk about their pesticide licenses. You can have it all right there at your fingertips through this IPC project program. And it really is important to have that for accountability and for a lot of other reasons. So let me go just right back to IPC Connect, and then we'll show you some of the tools that work for this particular package. I'd say, well, just so you can see, you can have your sections, whatever sections you want to include in your project, you can. In this case, just to show you briefly, you can have all the chemicals listed that you would have approved for your sites or you would like to use or whatever. And you know, you click on any of these chemicals and you can get the MSDS sheet, the label, any information that you want to put in there, notes that are important to your particular site. You can have your methodologies all listed and described, and you click on each one and you can get more detail about it. You get pictures that show the applicator how to use this methodology while they're in the field. So if they're not familiar with crown removal, if they just click on this, it'll bring up a nice document showing them how to do crown removal. Maybe it's for you know, kudzu or tilling and plowing, whatever it is. It's a resource they have right in the field while they're doing the work. Under equipment, you might have listed, you know, spare parts and how to fix tools while you're in the field. So a lot of our crews might hike out 2 miles to do a project, and when they're out there, the last thing you want is for a tool to break, and they have to go all the way back to the vehicle, all the way to the shop or the hotel, wherever they might be, and fix the tool and then get back in the field. Well, this allows them to have schematics and other tools that allow them to actually make simple fixes while they're out there without having to question what they're doing. You can track their hours. You can do whatever you want as far as tracking is concerned. I'll show you the site sheets really quickly. You know, everything used to be a hard copy. Again, really hard to deal with. We had stack and stack and stack of hard copies of site sheets from the work that we had done for the day that day. You know, they get put into a pile. They get sent monthly to the client. The client has to input all that information somehow or just stick it in a file. Well, thank goodness that's changed. Now we have different ways of doing it. So let's just, you can see all the different treatments alphabetically here for some of our crews over the course of, I think we put in information. We backtrack now back to 2007, I think. So we've got a lot of sites from a lot of different places. But let's just go to the latest treatment. I like to see what they've done today. So just imagine, you know, one of your crews, or in our case, IPC's crew, is out on the site today, and they're working on this, and they're going to do their treatments. This was yesterday. So this is not an exciting site. It's a parking garage, but let's look at it anyhow. You can see that Spencer was working on, over the course of 2 years, you can see the dates they were on that site. You can click on yesterday, so you can see what Spencer did yesterday. So let's just imagine you're the client, and you want to know what these guys are doing in the field. Well, yesterday they could have pulled up the site sheets because they'll have their own interface on their end, and they can see exactly the date, the temperature range, the time that they worked there, the people that were on the site, 2 people yesterday, the site conditions, the wind conditions, the methods used, backpack sprayer, the crews. So if you click on backpack sprayer, you'll get the details of what a backpack sprayer treatment is, so the client can see that. See the acreage they treated. Click on the crew person, and you can actually see their licensing information for that particular state. I believe this is in Maryland, so you'd see their Maryland information. See all the species they treated. Again, click on this species, and you'll get the information about that species, more of the detail. And then over here you can see the chemicals they used. You get all the information right there. So it's not just this sheet. You can print this out, and you can have a sheet if you want it. But it's also all the detail of every piece of the information that's on the sheet that you can get out of these online tools. And you can click on the View Polygons. So not only do you have the information about the site, but now you can see the site. So the site they treated yesterday, again, here's the parking garage, and here's the area around the parking garage they were treating. So if we just click on English ivy, you can see the English ivy they treated, the Japanese honeysuckle they treated. It's all right there. Again, they can add pictures to this if they want to, and that allows them to kind of pull it up. You can see down here, you just click on the species. If there were many species in here, which in many cases there are, you can get an easy way to just see it just the way it bounces up and down there. But it's a really neat tool to utilize. Let's go back here and just try another site really quickly just to give you an idea. Showed you Martin working on that. Well, let's try another one of Spencer's sites up here. So it looks like this is one of the military installations. And if you go here and click on that, the calorie pair, you can see the different species he worked on. Here's a case where you put a picture in there. So you can see what the calorie pair looks like on this site at the ground level just by clicking on that picture. You can see the time taken, which is usually about the time that they treated it. Another patch of calorie pair that they treated on the same site. So all this is just part of their site sheets now. So I think a really good example of where these come in handy are state licensing groups. So if you have maybe the Maryland Department of Agriculture might call us each year and say we need examples of 5 site sheets, your most recent site sheets. And we have to send it to them. And every applicator they have has to send that information. And in fact, every client we have needs this information pretty frequently, and we have to send them the hard copies. Well, now they can just get online and just pull this up, and they can get it in a few seconds. They can just print it out if they need to print it, or they have it on their screen. They can see all the details they need. So if the licensing groups from state to state had this, and then the people that are doing the application, the applicators, had this, they would have a really easy way of tracking all this information, and they could have all the printed reports they want out of this. So let me go back to the admin side again. So that's part of it. And you can see the legacy site sheets. We can go back as many years as we had information in there. You can go to chemical reports too. So say they're working at Fort Detrick. Let's find one of their sites. Well, that's Forest Glen is part of the Fort Detrick sites. And let's just decide we need to know, Lynn from Fort Detrick called and he said we need to know the amount of chemicals that were used on the Fort Detrick site in 2012 so far. Well, he wouldn't have to call us. He could just get on his interface, click Forest Glen, put the date range up there, click Generate, and there he has a chemical report. So you can see the dates that glyphosate was applied. You can see the total solution applied on those dates, percentages solution applied, amounts, total price, cost per gallon, the total cost of this type of application based on the percentages that we applied. In this case, in April, they did Garlan, and March and February, they did some rodeo glyphosate applications. So you can download the raw data and get any of that information you want. So a lot of really good ways to get good information. And again, you can click on pesticide users, and you can pull up every applicator that you would have working for you there. So you can see their licensing information. You can see any type of information you want to put in there, you can put under the pesticide users. So now Paul's gone from, and let me go back here really quickly. Actually, let me just end up here. Still up. Guess it's not up anymore, but. So now Paul's gone from the inventory phase to the determining what tools to use, what's going to work best to manage these specific plants in this scenario. They've put together the management plan with all that inventory and methodology information they had, and then they've gone out and actually implemented the project, and now they have a tracking tool that can take them through that final step. So once they've tracked it all and they have all the information, the next year when they come, they're going to be a lot smarter about how they work, and it's going to be a much more efficient project to work on. And I think the best thing about all these tools is that 10 years from now, when the land manager that's there moves on to another job or retires, that information is still there, and it's still in the same format, and it's going to be consistent from one land manager to the next. So I think the more people that build these tools and the more people that use them, the better off we're going to be in terms of managing invasive plants. So that was as much as I was going to cover today. I've gone over by about 5 minutes what I wanted to. Let me check and see if there's any questions. And I don't see any that anybody's asked during the presentation. If you have any questions, please send me an email or a phone call. I'd love to talk details about your specific sites and the specific things that you guys are working on. Because like I said, all these tools are custom built so that they're made for your needs. Now, I'm going to go ahead and take the speaker off.